In 1971, an Iowa farmer named Edward Briney rigged a loaded shotgun to a bedroom door inside an abandoned farmhouse. When a trespasser broke in, the trap fired and nearly tore off his leg. What shocked people wasn't the injury. It was what happened next. The trespasser sued, and he won. That case became one of the most famous legal decisions in American history and helped define a rule that still exists today. You cannot set deadly traps to protect property. But on the American frontier, things were very different. For pioneers living miles from the nearest sheriff, home defense wasn't a luxury. It was survival. Settlers created ingenious alarms, barriers, and traps to protect their families from thieves, raiders, and wild animals. Some of those methods were clever, others were terrifying, and many would land you in serious legal trouble today. Here are 8 pioneer home defense tricks that are now illegal in most states. Number 8. The stake bed. Imagine approaching a cabin window in the dark. Beneath that window lies what appears to be ordinary ground, but hidden under leaves and brush is a bed of sharpened wooden stakes pointing upward. The idea was simple. If an intruder tried to climb through the window or jump from the porch, a single misstep could send them crashing onto the concealed spikes. This method wasn't unique to America. Variations of stake traps had been used in warfare around the world for centuries. On the frontier, they were cheap to build and required little more than a hatchet and a few hours of work. The problem is that the trap couldn't distinguish between a criminal and an innocent person. A lost traveler, a child taking a shortcut, or even a neighbor could become the victim. Modern law views concealed stake beds as deadly booby traps, making them illegal almost everywhere. Number 7. The hidden blade. Some settlers took deception to another level. Instead of placing obvious barriers around their property, they concealed spring-loaded blades inside everyday objects. A door frame, chest lid, or window casing could hide a sharp metal point designed to stab anyone who opened it incorrectly. Unlike many other traps, these devices offered no warning. There was no noise, no visible danger, and no opportunity for the victim to avoid injury. Building one required skill. A blacksmith had to create a mechanism capable of releasing the blade at exactly the right moment. Because of that complexity, hidden blade traps were less common than simpler defenses. Modern courts treat these devices with particular severity because they are designed specifically to injure through surprise. A locked chest protects property. A chest that secretly stabs someone is viewed as a deliberate assault committed by a machine. Number 6. The man trap. Perhaps the most notorious anti-intruder device ever sold was the man trap. Imagine a giant steel bear trap scaled up for human beings. Massive jaws lined with teeth sat hidden in gardens, pathways, and entry points. When triggered, they slammed shut with enough force to crush bones and immobilize the victim. These devices were so brutal that Britain began restricting them in the early 19th century. Wealthy landowners imported similar traps to North America, where they gained a reputation for horrific injuries. The issue wasn't simply that they hurt people. The issue was that they hurt anyone. The trap couldn't determine whether it had caught a thief, a child, or someone entering the property by mistake. That principle became central to modern law. The moment a device automatically inflicts serious injury without human judgment, it becomes extremely difficult to justify legally. Number 5. The electrified handle. As electricity spread into rural America, some homeowners discovered a frightening new possibility. Instead of using power for lighting or machinery, they wired doorknobs, gate latches, and window frames to deliver potentially lethal electric shocks. The appeal was obvious. The trap was invisible. No thief could see it coming. One touch could instantly disable an intruder. But invisibility was exactly what made it so dangerous. Electricity doesn't recognize intentions. It doesn't know who is touching the handle. The same shock intended for a burglar could kill a family member, a firefighter, or a visitor. Today, intentionally electrifying household fixtures to injure or kill people is treated as a serious criminal offense. Modern courts generally view it as no different than setting a deadly weapon to fire automatically. Number 4. The covered pit. Few frontier traps inspired more fear than the covered pit. A homeowner would dig a deep hole near a likely entry point, often beneath a window or beside a pathway. The pit was then disguised with sticks, dirt, leaves, and brush, until it appeared identical to the surrounding ground. An unsuspecting intruder would step forward and suddenly disappear. Some pits were empty. Others contained sharpened stakes at the bottom, turning a fall into a potentially fatal event. The trap was especially dangerous because it remained effective day and night. Once concealed, it waited silently for its next victim. Unfortunately, that victim wasn't always a criminal. Historical accounts describe travelers, children, and even law enforcement officers being injured by similar hazards. Modern law treats concealed pits as classic booby traps because they create a hidden threat capable of causing severe injury or death without warning. Number 3. The poison trap. If any device on this list demonstrates why modern laws exist, it is this one. Rather than confronting a thief directly, some settlers left poisoned food, drink, or bait where a trespasser might find it. The goal was simple: allow the victim to poison themselves. The problem was obvious. Poison has no judgment. A hungry traveler could consume it. A child could discover it. A family pet or livestock animal might become the unintended victim. Even worse, poison often worked slowly. Someone could leave the property and become seriously ill hours or days later, making it difficult to identify what had happened. Because poison is indiscriminate and potentially lethal, modern legal systems treat intentional poisoning as one of the most serious crimes imaginable. Using poison as a trap is not considered self-defense. It is generally treated as a deliberate attempt to cause harm or death. Number 2. The yard set gun. This was one of the most common deadly traps on the frontier. A loaded firearm was mounted to a wall, fence post, or tree. A wire stretched across a path connected directly to the trigger. When someone crossed the line, the gun fired automatically. Farmers used them to guard gardens, smokehouses, barns, and storage buildings. Commercial trigger mechanisms were even sold for this purpose. From the owner's perspective, the idea seemed efficient. The gun protected property even when nobody was home. But that convenience created a serious legal problem. The firearm couldn't evaluate a threat. It couldn't determine whether the person approaching was a thief, a child, or a neighbor. A gun controlled by a human being can make decisions. A gun controlled by a string cannot. That reasoning became a cornerstone of modern self-defense law and led to widespread bans on set guns across the United States. Number 1. The spring gun on the door. The most infamous home defense trap in American history is also the one responsible for many modern legal precedents. A loaded firearm was attached to a doorway and rigged so that opening the door pulled the trigger. It was simple, it was effective, and it was incredibly dangerous. This was the exact type of device used by Edward Briney in the famous Iowa case that changed everything. When a trespasser entered his abandoned farmhouse, the shotgun fired automatically and caused devastating injuries. The court ultimately ruled against the homeowner, establishing a principle that still influences American law today. Deadly force cannot be delegated to a machine simply to protect property. The reasoning was straightforward. A homeowner present at the scene can assess a situation and make decisions. A spring gun cannot. It fires at whoever opens the door, regardless of intent. That single distinction transformed countless frontier defense methods from accepted practice into criminal offenses. The pioneers who built these devices were often acting out of fear, necessity, and isolation. But modern law draws a clear line. Alarms, locks, lights, cameras, and barriers are generally acceptable because they warn and deter. Hidden devices designed to injure or kill are not. The frontier taught a harsh lesson. A trap has no eyes, no judgment, and no mercy. And that is exactly why so many of these once common home defense tricks are now illegal in most states.